Hi all, and thank you for tuning in to the second episode of the Global Sport Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Mike Barilaro. Today we're going to review the grand final from last week. We're going to review the UFC. We're going to go over some Major League Baseball because the postseason's just started. Go over the NFL, some EPL, and my thoughts on the international rugby league calendar. So let's get to it.
That goes fast like ocean waves. Anthems thrill the fluid veins. Choirs lift us high, then crash. Triumphant cries through sacred chains. Beneath the lights we conquer. Feel the dreams our brothers strive. Heroes born from sweat and grit. Forever chance through endless life. We are the raging hearts in stadiums, pulse alive. Under neon glare defiant, this fever we thrive. Cold wind, biting whispers, victory within our grasp.
Okay, guys, first topic of the day will be the NRL Grand Final. Surprise, surprise, 4 years in a row. Congratulations to the Penrith Panthers. It's quite phenomenal. I'm actually running out of superlatives. It's hard to describe in a cap era what they're achieving. They're clearly the best team in the NRL. They're losing a lot of players. I'll be honest, I don't think it's going to matter. I think they're odds on for a 5-peat next year. A lot of people will say no to that because they've lost Jerome Luai, they've lost Sunia Taruva, they've lost James Fisher-Harris. That's like 22 players they've lost in the last 4 years out of their top 30. They still go. They're a machine. They've got Ivan Cleary, they've got Nathan Cleary, and at the moment, that stranglehold they have on the competition, and particularly in their back row between Liam Martin, Isaiah Yeo, you've got Dylan Edwards, and they've still got Moses Leota there. And don't forget, they've signed Isaiah Papali'i, which, if he goes into the front row and regains that discipline that he had over at Parramatta, I think Isaiah Papali'i might do a great job in that front row. I don't think they really need him in the back row. Lindsay Smith is about to debut for Australia. I mean, that's what it's like. You go to Penrith, Lindsay Smith was a nobody. Next thing you know, he's playing for Australia. So when you've got a back row of Lindsay Smith, Isaiah Yeo, and Liam Martin, I don't think you muck around with that too much. I think Papali'i comes in. Next thing you know, the front row from Penrith will be absolutely fine. They're a phenomenal outfit. Their grand final performance the other night probably was the best of the four. Now, even though they were very, very dominant against a disgraceful Parramatta unit 2 years ago, they were in all sorts of trouble against the Broncos. They got out of it because of a Nathan Cleary masterclass. They had some luck against South Sydney, and they looked a little bit, their energy levels were a little bit sapped after a really, really tough campaign that led to the grand final. But they did well to win that game. The other night, they were in complete control against what should have been a very dominant opponent, a very dominant minor premier. They were in complete control. And from the time Alex McDonald dropped his first ball coming off the bench, I think it was about 21 minutes in, Penrith never gave the Storm another look in. Now, I know there's been a bit of controversy because of a disallowed try to Jack Howarth, but I'll be honest, I don't think it would have mattered whether they gave the try or not. The Panthers, they're an absolute juggernaut when it comes to strategy and game plan. They have stuck to the same game plan for 5 years. It's won them 4 premierships. It's very basic. They just run out of the backfield through their backs. The forwards do no work coming out of the backfield or coming out of their half. They kick, they chase, they tackle, they pick up, they drive back, they pick up, they drive back, they pick up, they drive back. They win that pendulum of field position per set, and once they get into your half, they just go into Cleary, they go into Luai, they get into your red zone, and they just dominate you, and they just choke you until they scored. The other night was actually a brilliant example of how, pardon me, how you can take a team down in the middle of the field. They obviously knew they didn't have Nelson Asafa Solomona, so they just continued to go with his inside passes, changing angles back inside, and watching it, I'm in the crowd going, they're obviously going to play out wide eventually. Like, this is going to lead to tries on the edges eventually. They're just turning back inside. They had the Melbourne forwards moving laterally, being off balance. And then you watch the beauty of the first try, coaching 101, Ivan Cleary, stand up and take a bow. They come out to a switch from the left-hand side, and they get it out to Paul Alamotti. And then inside Paul Alamotti, you've got 2 ball runners. and Paul Alamotti turns his shoulders in to look like he's going inside again, Melbourne Storm hesitate. They prepare to take the two, but because there was two runners, it took three defenders out of the equation. And instead of going inside, he actually does a runaround play and passes out the back to Jerome Luai, who comes out the back, which is perfectly legal. And then they pass out to Sunia Taruva, and that's how they got their first try. It was wonderful to watch. And it was such an odd game because up until Liam Martin scored the try just before halftime, I was commentating in the crowd and speaking to people around me, and we were all in total agreement that the Panthers were so dominant. They're down 6-4, but they were so dominant. It's just how they play their game. They are prepared to win the game. I said this last week. I've said this countless times over the last 3 years. They are prepared to win the game in the 79th minute. And even though they really need to win the game in the 79th minute, that's how they play it. They play it as if that's where they have to win the game. And it means that they're very comfortably in front 99% of the time once they get to that stage. Pardon me. So they're never caught out. But they just strangle you. They just strangle you. Melbourne Storm, from the time Alex McDonald... Look, the Melbourne Storm, in all fairness, did well in the first 20 minutes. I'm used to Penrith coming out and dominating and obtaining that field position dominance pretty early on. It didn't happen in this game. Melbourne were able to go with them. Harry Grant had complete control of the ruck, which you would expect being the best number 9 in the game. But James Fisher-Harris was blowing. Moses Leota was blowing. They were getting some penetration through Isaiah Yeo and Liam Martin, but Melbourne were hanging in the battle pretty well. And once Penrith had a few opportunities and they weren't able to capitalise, Harry Grant got one shot. Next thing you know, they're up 6-0. They did well the first 20. But once Alex McDonald dropped the ball, it's his first play off the bench. The famous words of Steve Waugh back in the 99 World Cup, when he looked at Herschel Gibbs and he said, "You've just dropped the World Cup? Well, I'm going to use this. Alex McDonald, you just dropped the premiership." That's how it felt. They never got a look in. The rest of the way home, they never got a looking in that grand final. It was an amazing performance. A lot of people have come out and said it's boring. Kane Corns from the AFL, sorry mate, what do you know about rugby league? I love the AFL. Have an objective view about it. He was saying how boring the grand final was. Nothing was happening. That's the beauty of it. Panthers were not allowing anything to happen. Obviously, they obviously wanted Melbourne to win because they're in the AF. It's the Melbourne City. It's an AFL city, even though Kane Corns is from Port Adelaide. But that's neither here nor there. At the end of the day, that's what was so brilliant about the performance. It was dull. It was pretty yucky to watch the second half. That's what makes Penrith so great. They don't let you play. You've got two teams out in the field. One team's not allowed to play football. That's how they do it. They're a machine. Their defensive strategy is incredible. They're full of energy because they don't have the forwards doing much work out of their own end. And it sounds simple, but they've been doing it for 5 years. And I say 5 years because despite losing the 2020 grand final where they were all kids, they won 17 in a row to get to the grand final. They were incredible to watch. They got some hard lessons. Cameron Smith's the best player of all time, arguably. So they got some hard lessons, and from that point, they've been absolutely invincible. The question I have is, what is honestly stopping them going 5? Everyone in the crowd is going, "You're never going to see this again. 4-peat, greatest team ever." I'm sitting there, hang on. You can talk that way when it ends. What makes you think it's not going to be 5? How do you know in 12 months' time we're not going to be talking about, well, you'll never see 5 again? You said you weren't going to see 4. Now you've seen 5. Jerome Luai, look, I think he's a loss. But having said that, that would insinuate that he's the reason they won the grand final in a lot of ways, right? So if he now goes to the Tigers and the Panthers now can't win the competition, that to me doesn't add up. Jerome Luai is an incredible... There was a great part of... You talk about experience between ball players. If you look at the Liam Martin try that got him in front just before halftime, there was a great moment where you don't always have to talk or have to communicate. Sometimes it's just a look and a change of direction, and you know exactly what your partner's ready to go. And they were ready to do. There was a great moment where Sean Bloor, former Penrith Panther as well, Tigers, but he was a Penrith junior. He was absolutely blowing a gale. He was out of the game. He was looking up at the scoreboard. He needed halftime. And the Storm badly needed halftime. He was really struggling. And they went to the right-hand side. Sean Bloor, he was sort of dropping off a tackle. He wasn't getting back. He was crawling. The ball comes from Mitch Kenny out to Jerome Luai. Jerome Luai senses that Sean Bloor he's waiting for halftime. And he just throws the ball straight back to Nathan Cleary. And it almost told Nathan, the weakness is right there. Take him on. Nathan gets the ball, doesn't panic. He runs straight at Sean Bloor. Jack Howarth panics. He runs up past the ball. And Cleary, just as cool as you like, he just runs at Sean Bloor, waits for the last second, pops the pass to Liam Martin once Jack Howarth's run past the ball, and it's all over Red Rover. It looked too simple. At that level, that shouldn't be that easy. But Nathan Cleary is the best player in rugby league. You can have your Kalen Pongers and all these fancy players. Nathan Cleary is the best player in rugby league. And I think the tweet I put out at the moment that happened is a minute to go. If Nathan Cleary is on the field, no lead is safe. Nothing is safe once Nathan Cleary is on the field. If he's there, anything can happen. You give up on the play, you're going to cost yourself 6 points. And I say 6 because he's probably going to kick the goal as well. Incredible performance. It was one of the most one-sided 20 minutes of football I've ever seen in a grand final. The only surprise to me was that the halftime score was 10-6. Now we get onto the controversy where Jack Howarth allegedly scored a try. Look, I was at the game. I saw 2 replays. I didn't see the ball come down in either. Now, there's been some speculation when you look at some of the footage that's come out since. It's very, very weird because I'm like, I didn't see that footage on the night. I didn't see that. So where have Fox League or Fox Sports or Channel 9 or where has anyone got this footage from? Is it doctored? Look, I don't think it was doctored, but I'm just saying I don't know where it was because the 2 replays I saw didn't look like he got the ball down. So if you look at the pictures, you can make a case that they've made a mistake. Does it really matter? No. People will say if they got the try there, it would have changed the momentum of the game. Bollocks. People go, how do you know? I'll tell you why. What have Penrith done in the last 4 years to make you think that all of a sudden Melbourne scoring that try would have won them the game and Penrith would have fallen off a cliff? Give me one example in 4 years. No, you can't give me one. They have proven that it doesn't matter what you do. They would have just kicked off. They would have ripped in defence. Dylan Edwards would have taken the ball the next set, followed by Brian To'o, followed by Isaac Tungle, followed by Sunia Taruva. They would have kicked it out of their own end. They would have chased it. The forwards would have picked up. They would have driven back. They would have picked up. They would have driven back. They would have picked up. They would have driven back. They would have got the ball back 10 meters closer from the last time they had the set, and they would have just kept that going as patient as you like, not giving away any penalties, not making any mistakes, and they would have choked Melbourne out of the game and wrestled that momentum back. So you can say all you want how that would have changed the momentum of the game. It wouldn't have. Penrith have proven over 4 years now that it would have not had an impact at all. You're talking about a team that went through hell to get to the 2021 grand final and got it done. You're talking about a team that just wiped everyone off the field in 2022 when they're at their peak. You're talking about a team that when they were in trouble and they were down by 16 with 15 minutes to go, they still found a way out of the grand final. And you're going to sit there and seriously tell me that if that try was given to Melbourne, the tables would have turned? Stop it. The Penrith Panthers, for 60 minutes, didn't give Melbourne a sniff in that grand final. It was one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen. The scoreboard may not suggest that, but you know what? That's Penrith 101. They don't care about winning by 50. They don't care about that. They have a structure. They strangle you. They're happy to win by a point in the 79th minute, and they will make it the most dominant 1-point win of all time. They're the best team in the league. Now, whether they plug Blaise Talangi into 5'8" next year, or they put Blaise Talangi on the wing just to serve his apprenticeship while Brad Schneider covers the 5'8", that's probably what I would do. But I think Blaise Talangi, it looks like he's been earmarked to cover the number 6. Certainly, if you believe the press releases the last 24, 48 hours, I don't think it's really going to matter. I think he's going to have to simplify his game. Ivan Cleary, 4 grand finals in a row. Is he the best coach in the game right now? You'd probably say yes. He'll figure out a way to do it. He's got Nathan Cleary next to him. If anyone's going to help Blaise Talangi develop into a great 5'8", it's the best player possibly of all time. Now, the GOAT discussion, we can have that in a later episode. I've got my own thoughts and theories on that or what Nathan Cleary needs to do to get that. I'm almost happy to say Nathan Cleary right now is the GOAT, but I reserve judgment because I don't want to put that kind of praise on him till he ends his career. He's probably got another 10 years left. Who knows what's going to happen in the next 10 years? But at the moment, I could almost make a case that it's his to lose. Similar to Patrick Mahomes in the NFL. People say you can't say Patrick Mahomes is the greatest player ever because Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes hasn't even played 7 seasons. I don't understand how you can. If that's the path we're going to go down, then that's a silly discussion. But what he's done in his career, Patrick Mahomes, having never missed an AFC Championship game, having been to 4 Super Bowls, having won 3 Super Bowls, having won 3 Super Bowl MVPs, all in the first 7 years of his career. But you want to say, well, Tom Brady's better because he's won 7 all up. Well, Tom Brady played 23 years, or 22 years actually. So that's not a very fair comparison. Anyway, we're not talking about the NFL right now. I'm just trying to say why I don't want to ordain him the absolute GOAT right now, but I am willing to say it's his to lose. He's got the next 10 years of his career ahead of him. He can lose that mantelpiece, but if you want to give it to him right now, 4 grand finals in a row, try to make an argument against. And his performance against the Broncos last year, the way he finished that game. Now, we're going to touch on this part because the difference between the great halves and the good halves. Jerome Hughes, Nathan Cleary, a great example the other night. Jerome Hughes, he had to find a way to get himself involved and step up. They were not winning the game in the forwards. He wasn't getting the platform he normally gets. But when the grand final was potentially slipping away, remember, on the scoreboard, it never really slipped away from Jerome Hughes. It went as 10-6, it went to 14-6. It was nothing compared to what Nathan Cleary had to deal with the year before. But even when nothing was happening for Nathan Cleary, and he wasn't able to get anything going because his forwards were getting beaten to a bloody pulp against the Broncos, he willed the team back into existence. He willed the team to that title. He got on the right-hand side of the field. He went straight past Kurt Catewell, found Moses Leota inside. He then kicks a 40-20. He gets second. He gets to the left-hand side of the ruck. He gets 2 wide, and then he's the one who passes it to Stephen Crichton, who scores. He then gets to the ruck, 1 off the ruck, and then he scores the winning try. He made everything happen. He willed it into existence. Now, everyone says he's just a structured halfback. Well, that's as ad-lib as it gets. And that was anything Andrew Johns, anything Jonathan Thurston used to do, that was Nathan Cleary. But he does everything Cooper Cronk does so well. He is a complete package. But the point is, when he needed it, when his team needed it, he's the one who said, I'm the halfback, I'm the leader, I have to make this happen. I just felt Jerome Hughes is going to watch that video back and say, I didn't take advantage of this. I didn't try to will my team back. I was waiting for a platform to be set. I was waiting for things to unfold the way they had unfolded all year. In a grand final, things change. In a grand final, sometimes you've got to will it into existence. I'm not having a go at him. He's a far better player than I ever was, and I've never played in the grand final. I'm just a fan having an objective view of what I saw. But Nathan Cleary, when his team needed him, went to another level. A level that I don't think any of us have ever seen. You give me a better 15-minute period than what Nathan Cleary did in last year's grand final. But Jerome Hughes, even though the scoreboard was close, I just didn't feel like he did enough as a halfback to bring Cameron Munster into the game, to bring Ryan Pappenhausen into the game, and to try to will his team back into the contest. That's my thoughts on the grand final anyway. You may disagree. Hit me up at mike@globalsportfanatics.com or hit me up on any of my socials what you think. Liam Martin, clearly the best player on the field. And I'm going to give myself a little pat on the back here. I'm a bit of an ego I've got. I made a prediction last week what the score was going to be and who was going to win. My prediction was Penrith 18, Melbourne 10. My prediction was Penrith 3 tries to 2. And my prediction in terms of Melbourne scoring a try, 1 try was going to come off Munster kicking to the left, trying to take advantage of the Xavier Coates and Brian Toto mismatch. And just about everything happened. The only thing is, Cleary only kicked 1 from 3. That's why they only got 14 points. And the Munster kick for Xavier Coates to set up the Jack Howarth try was controversially denied. I'm okay with the call, but the point of the matter is when you talk about having a read on the contest, I think I did a pretty good job. I'm not sure how many other people, because I was heavily criticised for suggesting that Melbourne could only score 2 tries in the grand final. Well, turns out they only scored 1. But the one that was disallowed was predicted exactly as I said. Munster, kick, Coates on Toto, and Jack Howarth was disallowed a try. So I'm going to give myself a quick pat on the back of that. Go Big Mac. But look, at the end of the day, Penrith were the best team in the grand final. They've been the best team for 4 years. At this stage, I've looked at some of the sides. I can't see any reason why Penrith are not going back to back to back to back to back for a five-peat. 2025 and a five-peat. There's a bit of a ring about it. Look, I don't want to see it. I'm not a Penrith supporter. But you've got to respect what they've done. And, as a father to a son, seeing Ivan Cleary and Nathan Cleary, it's really special. I can't imagine how proud that man must be of his son. And what a player he is. I'm really upset that he's not playing in the Tri-Nations, and that's going to be how I finish this episode today. I'm going to talk about that, and there's a bit of a controversial opinion about that as well. But Penrith are a great team. They're the greatest team I've ever seen in my life. I was born in 84. So I wasn't there for the great Parramatta sides that went back to back to back. I certainly wasn't there for anything else. I was born in 84. For me, clearly the best team I've ever seen. Now, taking into account the great Canberra sides and the Brisbane sides of the 90s, where it wasn't a cap era, I have to take into account the fact that they're doing everything in a cap era. When I say they're the greatest team, I'm not saying would this Penrith team beat that Canberra team. If you go player for player, you could probably make a case that Canberra would win. That's not what we're talking about here. But what we're talking about is the greatest team I've ever seen from a point of view of managing the cap, managing the structures within, bringing juniors in and bringing juniors out and losing players. That side of it all has to count because Penrith have to deal with the cap. Those teams didn't have to deal with the cap. Even the argument, who's better, Penrith or Parramatta? Well, Parramatta was star-studded in the 80s. And even the Manly side was star-studded. They were mostly Australian representatives. There was no cap. So you've got to factor in how Penrith have managed the cap over this period. And that has to sum up some of their greatness. That has to be included in the argument. When you say the greatest team of all time, you've got to talk about the structures. You've got to talk about how they've brought people in and out of the system, and how they've maintained a level of excellence that, with all due respect, they're not supposed to do. The salary cap is designed to not have a team maintain this kind of dominance over the premiership. So just on that premise, you've got to say, this is the greatest team we've ever seen. Look, the St. George team that won 11 straight, you've got to respect that. Parramatta 3 straight, the Brisbane teams of the early 90s, the Canberra teams of the early 90s, the best rivalries I've ever seen growing up. But this team is either up there or it's gone past all of them. And I think based on all the things they've had to deal with. So that's my thoughts. I think Penrith do win a premiership again next year. I can't see any team rolling them. I'm hoping I'm wrong. I'm hoping someone comes and stops it. I've seen enough. Four, I'm happy to say I've seen 4. I can have those memories. That's great. I don't really need to say I've seen 5. And to be honest, if they get to 5, let's be honest about this now. If they win 5, and they've done it without Luai and all this, I don't know who's leaving the club next year. I haven't heard any other rumours. What's stopping them from 6 or 7? So it really has to stop next year, because if they win 5, they might win 6 or 7. Phil Gould predicted this. Phil Gould said they might win 6, 7 or 8 in a row, and everyone laughed at him. They hadn't won 1 yet. And he said when they get it right, they might win 6 or 7 in a row. So he called it. Well, they're at 4. Everyone was laughing at him. Now they're at 4. They've got the best CEO in the business in Matt Cameron, who was the best pathway operator, taught from Brian Smith, brought in through the Penrith pathways, and now he's the CEO of the game. So they've got the best pathways manager in charge of the club. 5 is not out of the question, guys. The scary thing for everyone, if they get 5 with a 27-year-old Cleary, and now you've got Blaise Talangi winning a premiership as a 5'8", and you've got other players in there who have fitted into that system. I don't know if the exodus next year is anywhere near as brutal as this year. There's nothing stopping him from 6. There's nothing stopping him from 7. So fingers crossed it ends next year. But look, good luck to him. And I've got a few friends, very good friends that are mad Penrith supporters. Look, I go for a team that is just completely unsuccessful, so I'll leave it at that. But I'm happy for them. They've done a great job. They've made their fans so happy, and it's hard to argue with what we're seeing. And it's something that we're going to be able to tell our kids and our grandkids, because I don't think they're going to win 30 in a row. But in years to come, when my kids are old enough to understand it, or when I have grandkids, I can always say, well, I was there when the best team of all time was at their peak, and I was at the peak of my age watching them. It's not a real bad thing to have. So they're my thoughts. Hit me up at michaelglobalsportfanatics.com. Hit me up on my socials if you've got an opinion. On to the next topic. Okay, guys, just a quick recap on the UFC. I won't go into this too much, but what a fight. It was great. I'm a bit relieved. I was worried the first 2 rounds. Khalil Roundtree came out and was an absolute animal. He went after Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira made some mistakes. If you're going to fight stand up, you can't be leaning back. That's the first thing they teach you in boxing. I know he's not an out-and-out boxer. You can't lean back. You've got to use your footwork and you've got to maintain your posture and move back. He was leaning back and he was actually knocked down twice in the first 2 rounds. I mean, they weren't massive knockdowns or anything, but he did lose balance and end up on the ground, and Roundtree wasn't able to take advantage and finish the job. But it was getting scary. Shout out to the locker room, by the way, in Sydney Olympic Park for running it. They aired the fight. It was a really good crowd. Most of the crowd was going for Khalil Roundtree. That was a little bit unusual. I don't know why. Alex Pereira, I believe, had a lot of support. Anyway, I love the guy. I never want to see him lose ever again. But in the back end of that 3rd round, he started to get a few through the gate, and you could just see Khalil Roundtree's heart was just, it broke his heart. It just, a few of them got through. Look, Alex Pereira, he must have fists like cinder blocks, fair income. He wasn't getting much through, but once he got 2 or 3, you just felt Khalil Roundtree. You can almost see his heart break in front of you. He just, all of a sudden, he dropped his defense. He wasn't moving. He wasn't moving his shoulders anymore. He was slugging his hands over. He was more fighting in that real typical boxing defense where he was just covering up rather than actually just being in a good position and keeping his right hand up. Keeping his left hand up and using his right. He was literally just covering up and hoping that he didn't get knocked out. Then we got to round 4, and pretty early in that round, Alex Pereira started to make some serious indents. And a few got through the gate. Next thing you know, he couldn't miss. You're looking up at the clock and you're going, how on earth does Roundtree survive 3.5 more minutes of this? There's no way he gets to the end of this round. It was, to be fair, it got hard to watch. Once Alex Pereira broke his heart, he was just laying into him at will. And I started to feel bad. And I was actually yelling at the screen, stop the fight, because this could get really ugly. And respect to Alex Pereira. When Roundtree eventually went down, he didn't get knocked down. He just he almost said, I've had enough. He just went on his haunches. Alex Pereira could have just dug straight in and just smacked him in the head. He didn't. He gave him a yell saying, you're done. The referee said, yeah, we're done. This is finished. A bit of respect there. I don't really like how a player knocks someone out and then you can just jump on them and just lay into their head. I don't imagine those surplus blows, what that could do to a player residually, to a fighter residually. But total respect to Alex Pereira for just allowing Khalil Roundtree to go down on his haunches. And Khalil was just like, I've had enough. You win. I can't do this. It was the right decision. Great performance. And I'm just going to try to speak this into existence. I'm going to keep hammering on this. Du Plessis, go up to 205 and fight that monster, because that's the fight that everyone wants to see. I'm so excited, and I haven't even heard that fight being announced yet. There's some talk that Du Plessis is going to take on Rob Whittaker. Look, I'm Australian. We all love Rob Whittaker, but he's had a crack. He's failed. Do we really want to see Rob Whittaker again take on Du Plessis? I mean, it's not that we won't watch the fight. We all love Rob Whittaker, and he's in great form at the moment, by the way. But Du Plessis is another level compared to what Rob Whittaker's been fighting. I want to see Du Plessis go up to 205. He looks like he's struggling to maintain his weight at 185. Go up to 205, take on Alex Pereira, who's incredibly comfortable at that weight. Because I think Alex Pereira might start looking at the heavier divisions. So hopefully, and look, I believe he can dominate in heavyweight as well, but hopefully Alex Pereira stays at 205. Du Plessis goes up with him. That will be the best fight of all time. I'm going to maintain that. I would love to see it. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. If there's any other fighters I've missed, please hit me up at michaelglobalsportfanatics.com or any of my socials. Let me know. Let me research it, and I'll air it, and I'll have an opinion on the matter. But Du Plessis versus Alex Pereira, it hasn't been announced. I'm just trying to will it into existence, guys. But you're saying that if you say, well, what are you talking about? I'm just trying to will it into existence. I just want to see it so bad. Fingers crossed it happens. On to the next topic. Okay, guys, a little bit of a change of pace. We haven't spoken about this yet. I am a fan of the Major League Baseball. The postseason has started in the last week, so I just thought I'd recap it a little bit. It goes really, really quick. So I'm doing these podcasts once a week. It means that a lot of results are going to happen between now and the next time we speak about it, or the days prior to this podcast being filmed. But we've had some seriously good games, some really, really interesting series. Every series has been tied up. Some of them have kicked ahead. We have one that has officially been decided. Now, before we talk about the postseason, before it started, the LA Dodgers were going in as it's around about a $4 favorite. The Phillies, who were my tip, they went in around about $4.30, $4.50, something like that. Houston Astros after that, and then everyone else was at double figures. So really, you're suggesting that one of those three were going to win the title. How wrong I was. As of this morning, the first team to exit the postseason, the Phillies. And what a series it was. The Mets, the Miracle Mets, they still do it. What is it with the Miracle Mets? How do they keep pulling off this? I don't know how they do it. They're not a huge, they are a huge franchise. They're not that successful, but they've just had periods in their franchise history of just remarkable results. The Miracle Mets from the 60s, and then you had the Steve Buckner series with the Red Sox in the 80s. They've done it again. They've come out, they've actually defeated the Phillies. So the Phillies, my tip for the World Series, they're gone. So, the Mets now go and play for the National League pennant, and I would love to see them win it now. I'd love to see look, I'm not a fan of the Yankees, so I've always had a soft spot for the Mets. But having said that, with the Mets being in the National League and the Yankees obviously being in the American League, that'd be an awesome World Series if it happens. I mean, an all-New York World Series, I'm pretty sure it's never happened. I'm happy to be fact-checked, but I would love to see that. Absolutely love to see that. But the Mets this morning, 5 games between the Phillies and the Mets. 4 games between the Phillies and the Mets. They've won the series 3-1. All 4 games, absolutely outstanding. Edge of your seat, all at the last inning, you still didn't know who was going to win until that last out. That's the beauty of baseball. You don't know. It's not clocked. It's like tennis. You've got to get that last out, and you just never know. But this morning, Philly, they needed to get the win. They were down 2-1. They were playing in New York, and they needed to get the win. They were up 1-0 at the top of the 6th. Bottom of the 6th, Lindor comes in. Bases are loaded, and he just grand slams them straight into the National League pennant. Incredible moment. The crowd, it almost like they all caved in and were going to fall on the field. It was such a great moment. I don't know whether I'm going to see anything like that again. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it. I didn't see it coming. It was a really tight game, as it was the last one. And 1-0, I just thought maybe the Philly's going to hold on here and stretch this to a final game and take it back to Philly for the decider. But Lindor, bases loaded. Some great strategies to load the bases, and then he just came out and he could not have hit it any better. And you got to see the replay. Have you ever seen someone come up with such a big moment? And you talk about Nathan Cleary being the Iceman. This guy fed income. I think he came out of a bucket of ice before he hit the ball. He just hit it and just walked around like literally nothing happened. He hit a grand slam to win the series, which effectively that's when it ended. They put him up 4-1. You wouldn't have even known. He went around, he got to home base, and he just walked back to the dugout like nothing had happened. Like the game wasn't over yet. I understand that. You don't want to get too excited. But what a moment. The only person not celebrating was the guy who did it. However, once he finished the game, he was all over the place, Lindor. He absolutely went berserk, and he should have. I'm looking at a picture right now. He went absolutely ballistic. But that was one of the best postseason series I've ever seen. It didn't go to Game 5, but it was still one of the best I've ever seen. And the Mets, good luck to the Mets. They're the first team officially through. The Yankees, they won this morning 3-2. It was a tight game. They lead the series 2-1 now. They might win it tomorrow morning in Kansas, but if not, they've got the last game back at Yankee Stadium. I'm pretty sure that the Yankees will go through. The Royals are actually playing well, but they just seem a little bit outclassed. I think the Yankees get through that one. The Dodgers San Diego Padres series is an absolute bizarre one. Again, the Dodgers, they're in trouble. They fixed their issues today. They came out with an 8-0 win, but they're 2-2. They go back to Dodger Stadium to win the series. But this series could go either way. The Padres have been excellent. The 2 wins the Padres have had, one of them was an absolute blowout. They won 10-2. Now the Dodgers have come back with an 8-0 win. So it's a bit of a bizarre series. But at the moment, we could be looking at the Dodgers and Philly, both postseason favorites to make the World Series. They could both, well, not the World Series, obviously, but they would have played for the pennant. But they both could be out. That opens up the entire draw. So tomorrow morning, look, Detroit won this morning as well. They won 3-0, and they lead 2-1, and they got a chance to wrap it up tomorrow morning in Detroit as well. So they're going to be home for that. That would be an upset too. Cleveland were heavily favored for that series. Now, Detroit could be going through. So tomorrow morning, we've got, let's see, I just want to make sure I've got this app updated. We do. So yeah, Cleveland, Detroit tomorrow morning. And then we follow up by Kansas City and the Yankees. And then the next day we get into San Diego and LA. They'll fix that one up. And then potentially the next day we have Cleveland, Detroit, if Cleveland are able to win tomorrow morning. But at the moment, the postseason has had an incredible start. It's been a bit of a dour season in general. I got Game Pass. I do watch a lot of games. I'm a Boston Red Sox fan, or I've always been a Boston Red Sox fan. It's been a bit of a dour season. Nothing spectacular has happened. Ohtani has been the highlight of the year. He's been the player that everyone's been talking about. And then all of a sudden, we get to the postseason, and it just explodes. Every series, both teams have won. Everything's tight. The Mets have knocked the Phillies out. San Diego have every chance of knocking the Dodgers out. Even Kansas City have a chance to knock out the Yankees. I mean, they've got to win tomorrow. That locks it up. They've got to go beat them back at Yankee Stadium, which is unlikely. But, Kansas City Royals could get through. I mean, fair income. This could be a very unusual a season for the pennants. So, look, at the moment, on form, I've got to tell you, if you were to say one team who's going to win the World Series from now, I'm going to call the Mets. They've been brilliant. I mean, they've knocked out the team I thought were going to win it. Yeah. Go the Miracle Mets. Bugger it. The Sox aren't even in the postseason, so bugger it. Go the New York Mets. Anyway, that's the baseball. If you've got any thoughts on the baseball, I know it's not the biggest sport in Australia. It can be a bit of a slow game, but that's part of the strategy, and you have to understand that. In some of these postseason games, there's no runs until you get to the 7th or the 8th inning, but that's what makes it so tense. That's what makes it so tense, and all of a sudden, it can just explode in one inning, and the whole thing can change. That's what makes it so great. You have to be patient, and you have to respect the fact that these pitchers are so unbelievably good, and they're so unbelievably fast. They're pitching at well over 100 now. I'm seeing so many 101, 102 miles per hour. I saw a 103 mile per hour pitch. I didn't even think you could throw a ball that fast. Fair income. And they're showing the shots behind. Like, this is what the batter would see. You can't see it. They're going, this is what they would see 103 miles an hour. What? How on earth are you supposed to hit that? And the ball's moving, by the way. Sometimes it's moving away, sometimes it's moving in. It's moving at some direction, even on a fastball. And you've got this little round bat that's sort of thick at the top, and you're trying to hit this thing. It's incredible talent. The hand-eye coordination of these guys is just legendary. Honestly, it is. But if you're not into baseball, my advice would be just try to sit through a few games, because it might be slow in the first 5, 6, 7 innings, but if it's tight and it's low scoring and you get to the bottom of the 8th, the top of the 8th, you start to really feel the tension, and then you start looking at the strategy the manager puts in, how he's going to try to get loaded bases, how he's going to structure his designated hitters, all these kind of things, and you can get these remarkable finishes. Sometimes you got to sit there for 3-4 hours for about 20 minutes of absolute chaos, but that 20 minutes of chaos is something to absolutely behold. That's what I love about baseball. That's why I watch it. But I understand, look, anyone has an issue with it, let me know at mike@globalsportfanatics.com. If you don't want me here talking too much about baseball, let me know, and I'll look at that, okay? Anyway, on to the next topic.
Cold wind, fighting whispers, victory within our grasp.
All right, guys, just to recap the NFL. I mentioned last week how much of a big fan I am of the NFL. Hopefully you guys are watching the podcast and enjoying the content. So we'll go over last week's results. There's some cracking results in this one. The first game of the weekend, the Falcons and the Buccaneers. I thought the Buccaneers were very unlucky in this game. There was a holding call that wasn't called on them, which would have put them in position to kick the game-winning field goal. Would have made it 33-27, and they would have won it. But the Falcons, they did really well, and I had some less than complimentary words about Atlanta's quarterback last week, which I feel really silly about now, because Kirk Cousins came out and had an absolute astonishing game. I'm just looking at it here. 42 completions from 58 passes. He threw for 509 yards and 4 touchdowns. Okay, he threw an interception, but that's if you're going to throw the ball that much, the chances are you're going to throw at least one interception. 509 yards and 4 touchdowns, including the match-winning touchdown in overtime. So, Kirk Cousins, shout out. You made me look like an absolute idiot by saying you're overpaid last week. Oh, he probably is overpaid. He gets paid a fortune. He's the highest paid quarterback in the league, I think, outside Dak Prescott. But 42 from 58, 509 yards, 4 touchdowns. Man, oh man. That's a stuff up and a half on my behalf. But look, it was a great game. Atlanta, they're going pretty well, actually. It's they're 3-2 now, and I like what I see from them. But look, Kirk Cousins, when he wants to fling the ball, he's a good quarterback to watch. He's a little bit injury prone, and the question on him is going to be, look, when you get to the big games, and if Atlanta continue to improve the way they are, they might get to the postseason. Can he still fling the ball with that accuracy? Because he always has that ability to throw an interception at the wrong time. He can throw red zone interceptions. He's a little bit unpredictable, but 509 yards. He made me look silly last week. So apologies to Kirk Cousins if he ever sees this. I don't think he ever will, but nevertheless. Vikings 23-17 over the Jets. Vikings moved to 5-0. The Jets have just sacked their coach, Robert Saleh. I don't know why. I guess I don't run the organization, but it's a huge call, and only 5 games into the season. Well, 6 games into the season considering the bye, but I just don't understand why they would make that call. There were some rounds last week on social media of the footage of Robert Saleh going after Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers sort of telling him to almost, F off or something. It was a bit weird, but I don't know what's going on there. But honestly, they obviously feel as if they have a team that can compete for a title or can compete for a playoff, and they're probably right. Defensively, they're very stout. They've got one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and they probably feel with Robert Saleh's game plan, they're missing an opportunity. And at Aaron Rodgers' age, that's probably a fair point. Who they bring up, I don't really know. I don't know whether they're going to bring up the offensive coordinator or anything like that. But it'll be interesting. But look, I'm going to give them a little bit of credit here, the Jets. And it's a big call, but obviously they have faith in their squad for this year. And at 2-3, they might be feeling like this season's going to get away from them. And if they feel as if there's an issue in the coaching, in the head coaching spot, they feel like this is an opportunity to make a move now, bring in someone in the interim, and maybe just having a little bit of fresh ideas, a little bit of innovation, someone who's involved in what's going on so they're not changing too many patterns. You wouldn't want to be changing your offense or changing your defensive calls at this time of the year. You want to keep consistent. So if I had to take a call, I'm probably going to say the offensive coordinator might fill in the interim. But look, this news is only broken in Australia today. I haven't had a chance to read too much into it before I've done this podcast, so I don't really know. So I apologize if my information's a bit off. All I know is that Robert Saleh has been sacked. But I think in a way it means that the Jets feel the season's not ended. So we'll reserve judgment for now, and obviously by the next podcast we'll have a better idea what's going on. 36-10, the Bears against the Panthers. Again, this game, look, the Carolina Panthers, Andy Dalton's doing the best he can, but I just think the Panthers are in for a really, really long season. But obviously the reason why I talk about the Bears is because of Caleb Williams, right? He's painted a big target on his back with his ego and the way he carries on. But I've got to tell you, I might not have been convinced the first few games, but what I saw against Carolina, and again, you got to reserve judgment based on the opposition, but just in terms of some intangibles and some fundamentals. His stat line, 20 from 29, 304 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That'll work. That's good. They're elite numbers. There's nothing wrong with two touchdowns, 304 yards and 20 from 29, and he uses his legs a lot too. Now, Caleb Williams, I'm just looking. I'm pretty sure. What did he got? Yeah, 34 yards. Yeah, he made 34 yards with his legs, so 6.8 meters a run. What I liked about him, there were 2 things I really noticed. One, he's holding. Well, I mean, a fast release in the pocket is a good thing. Sometimes they hold the ball a little bit too long, but a quarterback who's willing to hold the ball and wait for the right pass, it means that he's not afraid to take contact. He got sacked a few times, but he was okay with it. He got straight back up. He wasn't flinching. He wasn't throwing the ball unnecessarily to get away from the linebackers. That's a really good sign, particularly at his age. Now, Joe Burrow is a lot like that too. Joe Burrow takes way too many shots than I would like to see him take. But Caleb Williams was taking some shots and he wasn't flinching. He was willing to make sure that he got the right pass away. He made sure he saw it before he did it. He didn't just fling it because he was worried about getting smacked by a linebacker. That is great. The other thing I really noticed is I didn't realize how hard he threw. I mean, there was talk in his collegiate days about how he had this cannon of an arm and he could throw it long. Throwing it long is one thing, but the velocity he throws it with. He has a very little recoil. He just brings it back a little bit and he just releases it. And he's got this beautiful motion when he releases it where the shoulder just locks and just cannons the ball out of the arm. And my goodness, some of the passes were just missiles. Absolute missiles. Obviously, he's going to want to watch his shoulder. He doesn't want to throw his shoulder out, but oh man, he's got some talent. I mentioned last week who the number one pick should have been. Jaden Daniels is proving, and he proved it this week as well, what a player he was. But he doesn't throw the ball anywhere near as hard as Caleb Williams. It's nowhere near as efficient as Caleb Williams. Some of these balls were absolute missiles. He was rocketing the ball. So, look, I know I shouldn't be talking too much about Chicago Bears and the Panthers. It's not exactly the highest class game in the NFL. But obviously, Caleb Williams has got my attention and I want to see. Now, in terms of the next game, not the best game this year. Probably the best game I've seen in about 5 or 10 years. The Ravens versus the Bengals was an astonishing game of football. If you're not a football fan and you go watch that game on YouTube, I guarantee you'll be converted because the quality of those two quarterbacks and the way they played, and both of them, by the way, made crucial errors towards the end to almost stuff it up on both occasions, but for both teams. But they were both extraordinary on the day. And I don't really ever recall a game 41-38. What would that tell you? That would tell you that the defense stunk. It didn't. It was anything but. The defense on both sides of the ball was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. The Bengals got a safety by dropping Derrick Henry on the spot in the end zone. No one drops Derrick Henry on the spot. That's how good the defense was. 41-38, and it was one of the best defensive performances on both sides of the ball that you'll ever see. That's how good the offense was. And when they got to overtime, you got to 38 all. Derrick Henry, what can you say? Just what a beast. How does someone that big move the way he does? And I think, what was it, 40 or 50 yards? I haven't got it here in front of me. It was a 40 or 50 yard run in overtime to put him 5 yards out. Actually, I'm shocked I stopped him 5 meters out, to be honest, or 5 yards out. And then obviously Baltimore, they don't take any risks. First and goal, take the field goal straight away. Don't risk losing the ball. Don't have a Seattle moment, as they say. Sorry, Seattle fans. Marshawn Lynch. But that was a phenomenal game. Look, Ravens are looking really good now, 3-2. The Bengals, I'm not sure I've seen a better team at 1-4, like ever. A team 1-4, I would normally say is not very good. They're extraordinary. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, who now, look, they're coming crashing down to earth a little bit, unfortunately, Pittsburgh. Look, they weren't bad against the Cowboys, and I'll give credit to the Cowboys. Well done, 20 points to 17. Steelers are my team, so I'm a little bit sad. But it's a hell of a division. The Ravens, now they're 3-2 with the Steelers, and I think they've gone in front based on percentages. But the Bengals and Cleveland are both 1-4, but the Bengals look superior to Pittsburgh at the moment. I shouldn't say that. I'm sorry to my friends that are Pittsburgh supporters, but Bengals look a lot better than us, okay? They will make a run. The Bengals are playing a style where I think they can put 4 or 5 together if they need to. But at the moment, look, the Ravens, they're a tough opponent. But that was the game of the year. It's one of the best games I've seen in years, and that includes Super Bowls. So if you're not a fan, go on YouTube, Bengals, Ravens, and just watch the highlights. It's honestly, some of the things you're going to see are astonishing. It was a brilliant game to watch. The Bills lost again, 23-20, another great game. The Texans are 4-1. They're going a little bit under the radar right now because, look, the Texans copped such a bad beat against the Vikings. I think a few people turned off them at that time. But maybe it's just one of those games where it just happens. But Texans look really good. This was a really, really entertaining game. And it finished with, I think it was a 57 or 58-yard field goal on the last play of the game to win it. Otherwise, it would have gone to overtime. But 23-20, the Bills, look, they're 3-2 now. I don't think it's panic stations yet, but they got absolutely slaughtered against the Ravens. I was expecting a bit of a bold restoration plan against the Texans. they were a little bit soft. Now, they did well. The Texans actually controlled the game, and Buffalo came back into it and got it to 20-20 apiece. But the Buffalo Bills at the moment, a little bit soft. Josh Allen wasn't having a very good game. He's been killing it up until the Ravens game. And it just feels like the Ravens took a bit of their kryptonite. And all of a sudden, that invincibility cloak is now gone. And maybe the Bills are starting to second guess themselves a bit. But it was a good game. The Texans deserve to win. They go to 4-1. Bills at 3-2. Both teams are in pretty good position at the moment. Jags, congratulations. I bagged them last week, but 1-4. Trevor Lawrence got the win. 37-34. I actually watched the highlights. It wasn't a bad game. It was more entertaining than I would have thought. Colts are 2-3. They're sort of neither here nor there. I don't know. Dolphins, Patriots. This was a hard game to watch, even on replay. It was. Yeah, look, I tried to watch the 40 minutes I could, and I eventually just watched the shorts. The Patriots are horrible. They really are. 15-10, the Dolphins struggling struggling at the moment. But, they got the job done. They're 2-3. Patriots, they're 1-4. I'm surprised they're 1. I think their season's completely over. Washington and the Browns. I picked this as a danger game last week. But the Commanders, man, they're just rolling at the moment. 34-13. And Jaden Daniels, again, had another good game. He made a few errors, but I think it's a really good testament to his ability where he makes an error and he just forgets about it straight away. He's got a terrible memory and he just comes straight back. At the moment, Jaden Daniels, and I think this is pretty fair to say, he's making a case for MVP. Like, with all due respect, if you look at the candidates right now and you go, who's the best player in the competition right now? Well, I think Jaden Daniels is winning that race. Look, I don't think he's going to hang on and be the actual MVP, but if Washington keep winning and he keeps starring, what was his stats? 14 from 25, not too bad. He's done better, but 238 yards off the 14-25, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Look, it's not legendary numbers, but he made big plays when he had to, and that's what was so good about him. So, Jaden Daniels, this week I'm going to give the upper hand to Caleb Williams based on his performance, but Jaden Daniels was playing a much tougher defense, and 34-13 against the Browns, who should defensively be very efficient. That's a big win. And for a rookie to be putting up these kind of numbers against pretty good opposition, I think is extraordinary. And the Commanders at the moment, well, in a pretty difficult division with the Cowboys and Philly, they're leading it. They're doing well. They're looking odds on to win it at the moment. The Browns, I'm gonna put a red line through them. I think they're done. Look, they've got a quarterback with a lot of talent. They've got a defensive line that can block, but the defensive line that can rush. They've got blockers, for Deshaun Watson. But I've got to tell you, 1-4, they've got to deal with the Ravens. They've got to deal with the Steelers. They've got to deal with the Bengals, who aren't going to stay at 1-4 long. I just can't see how they get into the top 2 spot. I mean, maybe they can be one of those divisions that has 3 in the playoffs, but even then, surely Pittsburgh, Bengals, and Ravens are the 3 teams. I think Cleveland, they're probably going to be the one team. Or them and the Patriots, for mine, I've got a red line through them straight away. Sorry to any Browns fans out there. I don't think there's going to be many listening. I've got the Browns out of it. Ravens and Broncos, I made some comments about Bo Nix last week. I'm going to have to sort of go back on those. He was actually pretty good on the weekend. But look, they're always different at Mile High. But 34-18, I think it's a pretty disappointing result for the Raiders. Broncos 3-2, not going too bad. Raiders 2-3. They've got to play Pittsburgh this week. It's getting a little bit tough for them. They're going to have to win next week, and I hope they don't, obviously, because I'm a Pittsburgh supporter. San Francisco, I mentioned last week, not going as well as they should be. The Cardinals, they were up by 13 at halftime, San Francisco, and the Cardinals have scored 2 touchdowns and gone 14-0 in the second half, and they've won this 24-23, and that's a divisional game as well. San Francisco, what's going on? The only saving grace is, as a division, no one's really kicked away. So Seattle's leading it on a 3-2 at the moment, but Cardinals are now 2-3, 49ers are 2-3, so no one's really kicked away. Look, I think they're going to be fine. I think they're going to be okay, but they're going to be disappointed by that loss, and you don't ever want to lose to a divisional rival, particularly when you should win. They should not be losing to the Cardinals, okay? Particularly at home. Not a Levi Stadium. That's incredible. But San Francisco, they've got some work to do. There's a little bit of a hangover from the grand final, from the Super Bowl last year, I think. Packers and Rams. Packers got the job done. Rams, look, 24-19. The Rams are doing the best they can with the crop they've got. I still maintain the Rams can do something if they get their players back, but it's starting to become a point where they might not get them back, or they might not get them back in time. I think the fans of the Rams will be pretty proud of them. They've still got a great coach. They've got a really good quarterback. but the players they're missing, it's starting to really hurt now. The Seahawks, how on earth they lost this game? 29-20 at home against the Giants. That's a game they had to win. They just had to win that game. They had a chance with San Francisco dropping their game to the Cardinals. The Seahawks had a chance to go to 4-1, and they've absolutely bollocksed it up. They were really poor too. They were really poor. I watched that game. That wasn't a 40-minute game. I actually watched that full game because it was one of the later games. Terrible performance. Terrible performance. They'll be so disappointed without the Seahawks. And now they're putting themselves into a real dogfight. They're going to be playing San Francisco this week. It's going to be at the Hawks' Nest, sure. But now this has become a must-win game. And it's a must-win game for both franchises. You don't want to play San Francisco in a game where you must win. That's going to make things really, really tough. So the Seahawks, I had high hopes for them at the start of the year. I'm starting to drop off that a bit now. I think they're going to struggle. Huge week coming up for them. Huge week. Dallas, look, they're going they're 3-2 at the moment. They're cruising along. They're coming second along with in the division. They're just ahead of Philly because Philly's had the bye. Steelers 3-2. 20 points to 17. That was a little bit disappointing on my end, but nevertheless, it was a great game. It was entertaining to watch. Dak Prescott, I'm still not convinced at all. He's $60 million a year. I thought he was pretty poor, to be honest. But they got the win. Good luck to them. I don't want to talk too much about it because it depresses me. And the Chiefs, 26-13 over the Saints. Pretty entertaining game, actually. Saints made this a real contest, and Derek Carr did really well under pressure. Patrick Mahomes, still Mr. Reliable. Again, their stats aren't off the charts, the Chiefs. They're not doing anything outstanding, but they never show their aces too early, the Chiefs, and they're 5-0. That's the best start I think they've ever had. I don't think they've ever started the seasons 5-0. Again, happy to be fact-checked. Derek Carr, 18 from 28, 165 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's okay. He actually threw better than that. Sometimes stats can be deceiving. I thought he kept the Saints in the game. Patrick Mahomes, yeah, well, on paper, this is a huge. It's a huge. No touchdowns. That's interesting, but 28 from 39, that'll work. 331 yards, that'll work. No touchdowns. That's unusual, but nevertheless, as long as you get him in position and they can run it in, that's fine. 1 interception, these things happen. Patrick Mahomes, we know he doesn't throw interceptions come postseason, except for the Super Bowl last year one time. That was weird, but nevertheless, he doesn't usually do it. So, look, I think there's some, there were the results for this week. Next week, there's some cracking games. San Francisco Seahawks, I think that's one you don't want to miss. Chicago play Jacksonville. Baltimore, Washington. That's the game of the week for sure. From what I'm looking at right here, Baltimore, Washington, that's the one you're going to see. What an acid test. If they can take this one, now you're talking Super Bowl contenders if they can beat the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens at the moment are another stratosphere. And that's why you can't write off the Bengals, because the Bengals went toe-to-toe with them. But those are the two teams. At the moment, I'm going to tell you now, I think the Bengals and the Ravens are the two best teams in the in the NFL. That's just my opinion. Obviously, the Chiefs are 5-0, and we know what the Chiefs can do later on in the season. If you take them out of the equation, the other two teams, Ravens, Bengals. But if Washington can get this win, we're going to have to start having a discussion about, one, Jaden Daniels potentially being MVP, and two, Washington's actual chances of winning a Super Bowl. They've recruited some good players. They've got some experience in there at the moment. They've got some good young players. Be careful of Washington if they win this game. I'm not tipping them. I'm tipping Baltimore, particularly at home. But it's a game you don't want to miss. Green Bay and Arizona, well, based on Arizona's form last week, not a bad game form-wise. Houston, they'll just beat New England. New England's are gone. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, two pretty good sides, but it's a divisional rivalry, always very tense. You don't want to miss that one. Cleveland and Philly, two teams that really need to start showing something. Two teams that were heralded before the season. They're not doing much, so I'm going to go Philly at home, but Cleveland, they dropped this game, and forget the red line. That absolutely ends it. I may have gone premature. They can redeem their season by winning this game, but they lose this game, and they are fair dinkum absolutely gone. You got no argument after that. Indiana and Tennessee, not the highlight of the weekend. The Chargers and Denver, no, it's not a bad game. It's an interesting game. It's worth a watch. Pittsburgh and the Raiders, well, I'm hoping Pittsburgh can come back. They should win that game, Pittsburgh. If they're fair dinkum this year, they beat the Raiders, regardless of where they're playing. Atlanta, Carolina, Atlanta get the win there. Detroit, Dallas, in all fairness, that's probably the game of the week along with the Baltimore, Washington game. Detroit, Dallas, especially what we saw last year, the same game at the same stadium when they went for the 2-point conversion, lost 22-20. Painful to watch, honestly. But Detroit, Dallas, I think that'll be a good game. And Want to see what Dak Prescott's going to do here. Again, not convinced on him. But if they drop this game, they're just another pretender. They've got to win this game. They're at home. Detroit are a good team, but you've got to win that game. Cincinnati, New York. It's in New York, but I think Cincinnati, they have to start making a run. They're going to win that game. And the last game, Buffalo, New York Jets, always a good game. Another rival, another divisional rival. You've got the New York rivalry as well. And I'm going to go Jets. I think the Jets are going to win this game. I think they've got a trick up their sleeve. I'm interested to see who they put in as a head coach. I think they know what they're doing. I don't think they've just removed Robert Saleh and have no plan B. They wouldn't have done that. Aaron Rodgers he wouldn't have let it happen. He's a quality quarterback, one of the greatest of all time. He would have said, if you're going to sack him, you better have a good plan B. Was he involved in the decision? Look, I don't know. He'll swear blind that he's not. It's hard to believe that he wouldn't be, but you never know. I think they're going to win that game. I like their defense. I think with Aaron Rodgers, he can. I think they can bully Buffalo out of the game. And again, division rivalry, those games are always the best to watch. So there's a few divisional rivals. You've got to watch out for the Buffalo, New York Jets. You've got to go to the Tampa Bay, New Orleans. And then you've got where's the last one? San Francisco Seahawks one. So they're the three divisional rivals you want to watch this week. And then you've got obviously the Washington-Baltimore game, which by far and away the game of the weekend. Enjoy your NFL this weekend. On to the next topic. Okay, guys, my recap of the English Premier League from last week. So we're on to match day 6 now. Look, it was a very entertaining weekend of football that we encountered. It started with Liverpool, 1-0 win over Crystal Palace. They didn't have it all their own way, Liverpool. Crystal Palace actually played really, really well, but the goal Liverpool scored was absolutely exquisite. And you watch Arne Slot on the sideline, and you know when the manager has come up with a real typical training run goal. He's come up with something and it's worked. You could just tell when they've done it. He was looking at it like, yeah, I came up with that one. That's my goal, you know. It was an exquisite goal. 1-0. They didn't have it their own way, as I said. Crystal Palace, not a bad team, but Liverpool 1-0. They're still at the top of the ladder. West Ham absolutely blitzed Ipswich Town. That was really good. Man City, Fulham, really entertaining game. Man City scored 3 really good goals. The goal from Doku from outside the box towards the end to get the 3. Must watch if you haven't. But I've got to tell you, Fulham supporters would be so proud of their franchise. They're a good club. They're not mucking around. They're pushing for potential Europa League. They're up in that echelon, and good luck to them. Fulham, 15, 20 years ago when I really got into the Premier League, Fulham were actually a top 4 contender. They've gone down, and since then they've come back up. But I think Fulham fans will be tickled pink with how they're playing, and they led this game 1-0 actually. They actually got the jump on Man City. But when you jump on Man City, you poke the bear, and they've got so much quality. But I don't think 3-2 is a disgrace. So well done to Fulham. Leicester City, Bournemouth. Bournemouth had a plethora of chances in the second half. They were unlucky with the VAR call. But I've got to tell you, the goal scored by Leicester City, a new star's been born. Buonanotte, his name is. Italian for good night, but he's actually Argentinian. He's probably got Italian descent. A lot of Argentinian players do. The goal he scored was exquisite. It wasn't just the fact that he scored. I had an issue last week on the podcast where I was talking about people following Pep Guardiola's platform too closely. Not enough isolation. But this kid, he hasn't got with that script. So he was just taking plays on left, right, and centre. Scored an exquisite goal. But the big thing is, 3 minutes before he scored the goal, he hit the post, which would have been an absolute screamer, even better than the one he scored. He beat 3 or 4 players, got into the central field, and just smashed it, hit the crossbar. The goalkeeper couldn't do anything about it. And I hadn't really heard too much about him, but I've gone and done some research. He's 19 years old. He's from Argentina. It's his first right into the Premier League. He's one to watch. And Leicester City created history a few years ago by winning the title when no one saw him coming. So they're obviously a team to watch now. But a 1-0 win. They're not going that well, Leicester, on the ladder. But I have a player to watch now. So this one not there. I want to see what he's made of, and we'll see how we go from there. But that was a good result, 1-0. Brentford and Wolves. 20 years, never seen a more extraordinary start than this game. If you haven't seen it, like Brentford scored after 1 minute. On the second minute, they hit the post. By the third minute, Wolves had equalised. It was just, you just sit there going, what's going on? No defence at all. Goal, hit the post, equaliser inside 3 minutes. Never seen anything like it. The score ended up being 5-3. So, yeah, 8 goals were scored for the game. But going back to my issue with the Pep Guardiola system, These two teams are a great example of why you've got to come up with your own strategy and you can't keep building from the back. Get rid of the ball. Like at least 3 or 4 of the goals in this game were simply because a defender or a goalkeeper was not willing to clear the ball, just pass it across the face of goal, intercepted, back in the net. At least 3 of them. It's just... I don't know why they do it. It's just ridiculous. The next game we're going to speak about the same thing. Arsenal, Southampton. Arsenal clearly the best team on the day. They were fantastic in the first half. They weren't able to score. But they came out a bit lackadaisical. Dippling, another player to watch. You don't often see someone bully an Italian international defender off the ball, but Dippling got straight past Calafiore, got inside. It was next thing you know, you got Southampton up 1-0. It, again, awoke the sleeping giant. Saka, best player on the field by a country mile, scored a cracking goal, set up another goal with a cracking pass, and then scored the match winner. But it's the match winner that I want to talk about because you look at it, you're 2-1 down. It's the 87th minute. I think there's about 5 or 6 minutes worth of stoppaging. So you've got 8, 9, 10 minutes left. But Arsenal get a breakaway because obviously, pardon me, Southampton are pushing up, obviously, to try to get the equaliser. They get a breakaway, but they get 3 defenders back, and they actually defend it really, really well. I've gone completely blank. The Japanese defender I've gone completely blank. The Japanese defender for Southampton, he might be Korean. I do apologise. I've forgotten his name. But the point is, 3 defenders, they dislodge the ball off the Arsenal player, and instead of clearing the ball, and you've got plenty of time, clear the ball, get your team back and then reset, he starts to try to dribble it out of his penalty box. He just starts dribbling it. And Saka just takes it off him and puts it in the back of the net. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What is this obsession with holding the ball all the time? Just put it out of touch, allow the throw in, bring everyone back behind the ball, see if you can get the ball back and try to build and then see if you can score the equaliser. What are you doing holding possession in the penalty box with someone as good as Saka who just took it off him, put it in the back of the net? It's just... Anyway, I can go on and on about that, and I probably will go on and on about that as the week goes on because we seem to have these goals being conceded every single week in the Premier League. I don't understand it. Let Manchester City do what they have to do. Figure out your own style. Everton, Newcastle. Honestly, Everton, Newcastle, years gone by, you think, what a great game to watch. That was an eyesore to watch. There was very little opportunities. It was a terrible game. Obviously, the Aston Villa Manchester United one, that was 0-0 too, but full of opportunities. Man United, I'll give them a bit of credit. They actually defended with a bit of stoutness. They were pretty good. Aston Villa probably should have won. They'll be disappointed because they're trying to lock up a Champions League spot, but they're still there in 5th position. They're equal points with Chelsea, so they're still going good. It was a chance for them to go into the top 4. They've missed it. But Man United, I'll give them a bit of credit. They've been disgraceful. They were pretty tough the other day. Chelsea, Nottingham Forest, 1-1 draw. They'll be disappointed with that one. And the game that I have to speak about, Brighton and Tottenham. Honestly, the Tottenham Hotspur, that game encapsulated their entire history. Seriously. When you think about Tottenham, you think talent to be a contender. They can beat any of the big clubs, but they just don't have the mentality to see it through. They always end up losing it to Liverpool or Chelsea or Man United, even in their heyday, Arsenal, all those big clubs. They just can't seem to place themselves in that bracket. They've got the skill, they've got the talent. It's a huge club, Tottenham. It's a huge club in London, but they just seem to fall to bits. They melt down and they get themselves in trouble. They run into each other and they just melt. And this game encapsulates it. If you were to look at this game in a vacuum, Brighton are having a great season. They're actually challenging for Champions League right now. At home, you think danger game. Tottenham go into their home and absolutely bully him for 45 minutes. Tore him to shreds. Ange Postecoglou, great manager, tore him to shreds. Tottenham should have been up by 3, actually. They missed a golden opportunity right on half-time to go up 3-0. Maybe that was a premonition, I don't know. But they look so good. They come out in the second half. Within 12 minutes, it was 2-2. They just fell to bits. 10 minutes later, it was 3-2 to Brighton. There was 27 minutes to go in the contest, and Brighton were now up 3-2. It was a complete meltdown, and they kept showing Ange on the sideline, and Postecoglou was just like, I got nothing. Like, at some point, there's only so much you can do as a manager. When your team is just having an absolute meltdown on the pitch, it is what it is. It is what it is. And honestly, it's Tottenham. It's just their DNA. I've got nothing personally against them. I want to see him go well. I want to see him win the Premier League because Ange Postecoglou's their manager. But they just can't do it. They can't do it. They've got the talent. They tore Brighton to shreds. Brighton showed a little bit of stick and they just came back at him. And what I loved about Brighton is once they got to 3-2, they didn't park the bus. They didn't try to defend it, which I believe is what Tottenham probably did. Lost their momentum and got caught out. But Brighton, they kept pushing up. They kept threatening. And as a result, Tottenham, they just couldn't get in rhythm. They were just passing. Passes were going over the sideline. They were all over the place. Crosses were going well over the box. They had no idea what they were doing. It was a complete meltdown. It's hard to fathom what Tottenham's all about. I don't understand, but I just got a feeling that's just their DNA. They can look like the team that is by far and away the best in the Premier League and look like an absolute shambles in that same 90 minutes. Tottenham DNA. That's all I can put it down to. At the moment, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Chelsea, they're your 4 Champions League spots. Aston Villa and Brighton are competing for Champions League and are competing for the Europa League. Brighton's on 12 points. Chelsea's on 14. Well done, Brighton. They're going well. They smacked Everton. They beat Man United. Now they've beaten Tottenham. That's some big scalps. They've done really well. At the bottom of it, you've got the Wolves, you've got Southampton, Crystal Palace, which they're the ones that are going to be fighting it out for the relegation battle. And Everton and Leicester City want to be careful. Even Man United are already on 8 points. So they want to be careful. But at the moment, Crystal Palace, Southampton and Wolves, 3 points, 1 point, 1 point. Just Ipswich have to be careful. Everton on 5, Leicester City on 6. I think the rest are safe. So that's the English Premier League wrap for this week. Any issues with it, let me know at mike@globalsportfanatics.com if I've missed anything or anything I think I should be discussing regarding the Premier League. On to the next topic. Okay, guys, so just to finish up my episode this week, I want to go back to rugby league again. Just some issues I've got with the International Rugby League calendar. I really believe there's a systemic issue in the game right now. I know International Rugby League isn't a priority to a lot of these players, but it should be. It should be the pinnacle. It should be why you play the sport. I know we don't play in that many countries around the world compared to rugby union or soccer or even cricket sometimes, you could even say. So those World Cups are just superior. I get all that. But rugby league internationally at the moment, look, the reason I'm raising this topic is I copped a little bit of criticism by putting up a post on my pages regarding Liam Martin pulling out of the Tri Nations. I apologise if anyone thought I was having a go at Liam Martin. I'm not having a go at Liam Martin. I'm having a go at the structure of the NRL. Players who are needling up to play grand finals, are needling up to play semi-finals, are needling up to play key regular season games, state of origins as well. They're not needling up for international games. And this is my point. Nathan Cleary was booked in for shoulder surgery after the grand final. He hurt his shoulder against Melbourne 9-10 weeks ago. Pardon me. He missed, 3-4 games. He's come back. He's going to play the finals. He's going to needle up. He's going to play the grand final, needle up, hopefully win the title. And then he's going to go for surgery. Why is he going for surgery? Why is he not continuing to needle up and play for his country? And people go, oh, no, get surgery. Penrith Panthers mean everything. Yeah, sure. So why didn't he go for surgery when he got injured against Melbourne? That would have put him out the rest of the season, yeah? And what does everyone say? Oh, no, hang on. You got the finals, you got the grand final. You can't miss that. That's the point. This is the point. Players no longer have that passion to actually go out there for their country it's not considered a necessity. It's just not considered a necessity anymore. No one cares. And I think the reason is, I'm not saying that the players, when they put the jersey on, they don't play for their life. Of course they're going to play hard. They want to win for their country. But any niggle, a wedding, Stephen Crichton, I'm going to organise a wedding. He would have known before the season started that Samoa were going to go over to England. He would have known that. He didn't care. He organised his wedding for this time and got out of it. I'm not having a go at Stephen Crichton, but what I'm saying is his mindset would have been, do I really need to go to England and play a 3-test series after a long campaign? Hopefully we can win the grand final with the Dogs. They did well, actually, with the Dogs. I don't know if he was thinking grand final, but he would have been thinking, I would rather just get married and get that out of the way because it's not easy as a first grade footballer to do this, through the season and preseason, all that. He would have rather done that, and congratulations to him and his wife. But at the end of the day, it superseded the need to represent his country, captain his country, and go over and play a 3-test series. Why? Because what are they playing for? Seriously, what are they playing for? You've got the Tri-Nations series this year. Australia, New Zealand, again. I love watching the games, but again, same thing. This time it's Tonga. Next year it's Samoa. And next year when it's Samoa, Tonga will go over and play England in a 3-test series, and they just go back and forth. Well, what is it? What are they playing for? Give them some incentive. Provide some incentive, and I guarantee you, when you have... Mal Meninga is the Kangaroos coach. No more passionate player than Mal Meninga. He retired in 1994. He should have rode off into the sunset with the best grand final win of all time when Canberra destroyed Canterbury 36-12. And he scored the winning try for an intercept where he hung off Jared McCracken and he went and scored that try. What a moment to ride off into the sunset. No. What does he do? No, I want to captain one more Kangaroo tour. And he went away and he captained them. And it was a great series. The Great Britain series was great. And they won. That is what it used to be like to play for the Kangaroos. It's not like that anymore. Now, if Liam Martin has injured himself in the grand final, okay. But the pushback I'm getting from a lot of the followers is that he was already injured going into the grand final. He played with needles. And apparently I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, fair enough. Well, I didn't know that. But what I do know is if Liam Martin can play like that, needled up, one of the best grand final performances I've ever seen, hands down Clive Churchill medal winner. And I announced that on Facebook Live before they said it. I said, if they're fair income, Liam Martin gets the Clive Churchill medal. They might give it to Nathan Cleary on sentiment, but this should go to Liam Martin. And 5 minutes later, Clive Churchill medal winner, Liam Martin. It was a great moment. If that's him being needled up, you're telling me he can't do that for another 3 games for Australia? Really? Because that's the problem. Apparently, if he was needled up to a point where he can't fathom playing for Australia, why was he playing in the grand final? And why was he the best player in the grand final? There was a period where the trainer wanted to get him off the field to give him a rest. He told the trainer to get stuffed. I'm not listening to my coach. I'm not listening. Get off the field. Does that sound like a player that was hampered with injury? Doesn't to me. Scored a try, set up another one, was brutal in defence, and apparently now he's not good enough to play for Australia. He can't. His shoulder can't do it. His ribs can't do it. But what I'm saying is, no, it's a long campaign. They've won the comp. They would prefer to rest and not play the Tri-Nations. You know why? Because what does it mean? It means nothing. So why doesn't the NRL come up with a different strategy of how they're going to orchestrate their international calendar? So I've got a bit of an idea. This is what I would do. First things first, I would scrap the World Cup. It is a blight on the game because it highlights how pathetic we are as a world game, not how good we are. Well, you can't have Cook Islands being Italy 74-10 at a stadium that holds 4,000 people, that's got 1,000 people, which is probably just relatives and fans, put it on TV and showcase to the world and say it's a World Cup game. You can't do it. You're embarrassing the code. So what you've got to do, scrap the World Cup and every 4 years replace it with a Six Nations tournament. And, the Six Nations, one of them, very important, Great Britain has to come back as Great Britain. Not Ireland, England, Wales, Scotland. Reconform as Great Britain. That's when it was, rugby league internationally was at its best. Australia, Great Britain, New Zealand. At the moment, the next ranking, Samoa, Tonga, and based on a point system for the 3 years leading up to the Six Nations, would decide who gets that 6th spot in the Six Nations. It happens once every 4 years, okay? And then the way you do it as an event, this is the part that's going to really sell it to the world. You go to the Great Britain to do it, and because Great Britain is now constitutes all those countries, you have 5 different weeks. It's a 7-week competition, 5 consecutive weeks of triple headers, all played at different parts of the British Isle. So let's say you have 2 weeks in England, you go to Ireland, so you go to Dublin, you go to Edinburgh, and then you go play at the Millennium Stadium in Wales, right? 5 triple headers. So every single nation is playing on the one Saturday, 5 weeks in a row. 3 games, Six Nations, round robin event, 5 games in a row. You talk about, admission, 1 game per, you're paying 3 games for the price of 1. Imagine having essentially 5 consecutive Magic rounds where you are guaranteed. You're guaranteed. It's not even speculation to see the absolute best players in the world. 100%. It's all the top nations in the world. The best players at every venue, 5 weeks in a row. Great Britain would headline every single one of those 5 weeks. That would be the headline act. But you have a 3:30 game, a 5:30 game, and a 7:30 game on a Saturday. Won't interfere with the Premier League because Premier League's played on Sunday. Okay, and you'd want to avoid those kind of grounds anyway. But you'd have all 6 teams playing on week 1, all 6 teams playing on week 2, and so forth, all the way till you get to all those 5 games done. Then you get to week 6, the top 4, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, based on the performances. They play the 2 semi-finals, and then you play the final at Manchester in the Theatre of Dreams. So that's how you would do it. You have a 7-game Six Nations series, and a 7-game Six Nations series consisting of 5 essential Magic rounds every single week. Imagine the revenue generation you can have from Australia. Imagine a touring opportunity where, as a fan, you pay whatever the fee is, and then you get to travel the whole British Isles watching 5 Magic rounds on 5 consecutive weeks, plus a double header for the semi-final, plus the final, and you get to travel around England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland. Like, seriously? Name me a better sporting trip. That would be how I do it. And that's once every not every year, once every 4 years. Now, what do you do in the 3 years prior or the 3 years leading up? It's an interesting point because I think we need to bring the saturation of international football down a little bit to make it more appealing to the players and the fans. Not just have Mickey Mouse tournaments. Have a tournament that actually means something. So this is how I would do it. In year 1, I would have a Pacific Nations tournament between Australia, New Zealand, Samoa, and Tonga. But not a round robin. Round robins don't work because if you look at round robins, even last year in the Tri-Nations, we have this ridiculous scenario where New Zealand and Australia played and then played again. They played and Samoa were already out of the tournament, and then they played again in the final. Just make that the final. Well, you already scheduled it. I understand why, but just make it the final. What are you playing 2 games back to back for? It made no sense. So you have 4 teams ranked 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's sudden death. 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. The winners play the final, the finals win the cup. Just a 2-game series, and it's complete elimination. And the beauty of it is, that would be year 1. You would hold that title until after the Six Nations. So you would hold that title for 4 years. So you got plenty of incentive to play for that trophy, right? Then you get to year 2. Now, year 2, this is what I would say. Great Britain, New Zealand, and Australia, they're the 3 major contributors to International Rugby League. All of them should have 1 off-season off. 1 off-season where they're not participating in any games, and that's when players can get married or when players want to have a bit of a break, have one of them. So on that first one, where you've got the Pacific Nations tournament, Great Britain would have that end of season off. They won't have to play any tests. In year 2, bring back the Ashes. Australia and Great Britain, not Australia and England, Australia versus Great Britain in a 3-test series in Great Britain. That's what you want to play for. That is huge incentive. Kangaroo players 100% won't pull out of that tour. They would want to play that, okay? And New Zealand would be the team who has that off-season off. Now, if you want to get other minnows involved and still maintaining an interest and actually still participating in events and trying to stay relevant, this is how you would do it. Teams 4, 5, and 6 ranking-wise would go over to England and provide the curtain raisers for the Australian Ashes. Okay, so let's just say, take for instance, Samoa and Tonga and, we'll just say Fiji. All right, Samoa, Tonga, Fiji. Those 3 will go and they will play a round-robin tournament as the curtain raisers to the 3-test series. So let's just say you've got Samoa and Tonga, week 1, Tonga and Fiji, week 2, Samoa and Fiji, week 3. At the end of that 3rd game, based on whoever's in front, wins that series. Okay. Now, if for any reason they all win a game each and they're all on 2 points, then it goes down to for and against. And then if the for and against for anyone is equal, then you go down the line. For and against is equal, defensive record wins. Defense is equal, least tries wins. least tries are equal, most disciplined team gave away the least penalties. I mean, at some point you will be able to divide something to do with these teams. But essentially, you're essentially giving another mini tournament for these minnows to play, but the points mean a lot. Why? Because the points you accrue per win, or however you want to, how many tries you score, all that kind of stuff, would go towards your ranking for the Six Nations in 2 years' time. Do you know what I mean? It gives you a better ranking in that vicinity. So that's how you would do it for year 2. Then you go to year 3. Year 3, Australia get the off-season off. New Zealand and Great Britain play a 3-test series. And again, the curtain raiser between the first 2 teams, so let's say it's Samoa and Tonga, they go across. Fiji, they drop out because they came last in that tournament. Papua New Guinea go up, and they're the ones who now play in the curtain raisers for the New Zealand and Great Britain series. And the same thing, based on what it is, you can win that tournament. And then all these points over all these 3 years are accrued. And at the end of it, when it's decided who the 6 teams are going to be, it's basically going to be, Australia, Great Britain, New Zealand. That'll go without saying. And then it would be Samoa, it would be Tonga, and you're probably looking at another team and saying who's going to take that spot based on points rankings. So there's a lot of incentive. And then the other teams, things like Lebanon, Greece, Italy, France, there would be other test matches in between that. And if they're the ones who are now ranked 6th in the world, they're the ones who go up and play those curtain raiser games, right? So the curtain raiser games for the Ashes and the curtain raiser games for the New Zealand, Great Britain are based on 4, 5, and 6. I'm saying Samoa and Tonga because at the moment they're 4 and 5, whatever order they're in. But 6 is probably Fiji, but it could be Cook Islands, it could be France, it could be Lebanon. So the incentive for these little teams, for these minnows of rugby league, is to try to get that 6th seed to get into those mini curtain raiser tournaments, because if they accrue enough points, they're the ones who are going to play in the Six Nations. And then every 4 years you have your Six Nations based on the Magic Round platform that I mentioned. And I think that would be fantastic. Who would want to miss that? A player wouldn't want to miss that. Imagine the players and the fans all together in these different cities for 7 weeks. It would be great. It would be festive. It would bring revenue to the game. It would bring excitement. People who normally maybe did watch rugby league but kind of lost an interest would then be reinterested again. They would want to maintain an interest because it might be for the festivities. Okay, maybe it's because they want to party and they want to go around, but at least they're back interested in the game again. You know what I mean? It's something that rugby union don't do. It's something that if rugby league did, I think they would be successful. I believe that the players in league are more talented than the players in union. That's just a personal opinion. I'm not a massive union boy. I'm a huge rugby league fan. I love my rugby league. So that's how I would do it. That provides a 4-year calendar, and then it's just rinse and repeat. Once the Six Nations are over, the next year you go back to the Pacific Nations. So whoever held it 4 years earlier, you're still the defending champion. So there's a lot of incentive to want to maintain that because you don't have the same repetitive Mickey Mouse tournaments year in, year out. There's something you want to play for. Why wouldn't you want to play for a cup that you can only win every 4 years? Then why wouldn't you want to beat the Brits in an Ashes series? Right? And New Zealand, if you're New Zealand, why don't you want to have a shot at the Brits in your version of the Ashes? And then if you're these minnows and you get to play those curtain raisers, you've got a lot of incentive to get into that tournament because you can get into the Six Nations. That brings revenue to your country or your governing body in terms of rugby league. There's so much more you can do with international rugby league, but they've got to focus on that and getting that up and stop worrying about America. I understand they've got a contract and they want to go the next few years in Vegas. I went to Vegas. I was there 3 weeks before the doubleheader watching the Super Bowl. Trust me when I tell you, no one in America gives a rat's behind. They don't care, okay? They do not care. There was zero advertising going on. There was zero marketing. I spoke to so many people and no one had a clue what we were talking about regarding the rugby league. And you know what they all say? Oh, the ones that thought they had heard about it, they go, oh, is that the rugby? Yeah, rugby league. Isn't that the same thing? No. No, it's not. Rugby and rugby league are not the same thing. So we can't even educate them to know what the difference between rugby and rugby league is. And we want to promote the sport over there. If you want to promote the sport over there, I've got some ideas for that as well. I'll do that in another episode on a podcast because we're running out of time today. But having said that, the way they're doing it, just going over there and playing double headers in Vegas once a year, that's actually not going to work. That's really not going to work. They need to focus on the international game over in Britain because that's going to be the cornerstone of what you can build the bedrock of. That's how you do it, right? Get them interested, get the fans wanting to go to the Six Nations of Rugby League and use those and to enjoy those festivities once every 4 years. Get rid of the World Cup. You don't need the World Cup. Six Nations, 5 weeks, 3 games a day, 2 games for the semi-finals, 1 game at Manchester to finish it off. You will create excitement. You will create a bond between fans, international fans, and the teams as well. They will all be in the same cities at all the time. You get to see all the beautiful British Isles, Dublin, Edinburgh, Wales, England. The possibilities are endless. That's how you fix international football. That's how you stop play. And I guarantee you, the next time that happens, Liam Martin, you know what he's doing? Needling up. He'll needle up because he'll want to play in those tournaments. He's not going to want to miss an Ashes series. He's not going to want to miss the Six Nations. He's not going to want to miss the Pacific Cup. He's not going to want to miss these events. I guarantee you, would get a needle to do it. Jerome Hughes would get a needle. Cameron Munster would get a needle. Nathan Cleary would get a needle. Kieran Foran would get a needle. How many players? Leota would get a needle. Brian Toto would get a needle. There are so many players pulling out. Kalen Ponga had the nerve before he was even selected to tell the coach, "Don't pick me. I want to focus on Newcastle. We're 6 months away from the season. What are you going to do with Newcastle?" That's Aidan O'Brien's job, not your job. He's got to fix Newcastle. Your job is to follow what he does once he puts it in place. Have a rest. He'll figure it out. What do you need to pull out of the Tri-Nations for again? What a lack of passion that showed. And he's wondering now why he didn't get picked. Mal Meninga did absolutely the right thing. Absolutely the right thing. I just don't get it. How many players pull out? If you get a really serious injury, I get it. But these are players that have said they're scheduled for surgeries after the grand final. What do you mean after the grand final? Go play your 3 games for your country. That's how it should be. They don't do it. Why? Because the tournament means nothing. So I'm actually supporting the players because I wouldn't want to play either. I'm tired, long season. I've been bashed from pillar to post on the field. I would much rather have a rest than not play these Mickey Mouse tournaments that lead to nothing. But create a structure or create a platform where the international game can be revived, fun, incentivized to play, maybe financially a bit more incentive as well. Players are motivated by finances as well. Increasing the money for an international game would definitely help. I think State of Origin pays more, which is a bit silly. Then I think we're going to see some real traction. If we want to win the international battle with rugby union, we can't win it by going to America. We have to win it by trying to take the British Isles. That's where we have to take it. We've already lost the Battle of France. The France battle, if France were to get involved in this scenario and try to get the points and get into those curtain raiser tournaments to get into the Six Nations, yes, eventually it might happen. But the chances are that's long gone. If we want to compete with Union, we've got to win the British Isles back. We've got to get Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and England to form one team, similar to what they were called the British Lions anyway. Both rugby and league were both called the British Lions. Reconform the British Lions, and then you try to go after the Six Nations. And if you can win the Six Nations in your home country with all these events leading up to it, that's what's going to get rugby league back onto that pedestal. Australia is obviously always going to be the team to beat, but I think the gap has closed a little bit, particularly with New Zealand. So there's every chance that Great Britain could win the Six Nations if they did it that way, under that format. I think it would be great to watch. I'd certainly go. So look, it might be controversial, it might be out of the box, but that's the whole point of this platform. To raise questions, to come up with ideas that are a little bit out of the box, try to be objective as possible. But if you don't like what I'm saying, I'm happy to hear the criticism. Mike at globalsportfanatics.com. Hit me up on any of my socials. Guys, that's the end of the episode for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next week. Cheers.